All right, we're going to go ahead and get started here. Thanks to everyone for joining us. This is, when I say us, it's Steve Jerkin and Gary Richmond. I am Steve Jerkin. I'm the Director of Interactive Solutions for Marquette Group, which means I'm in charge of the fulfillment of our client campaigns as well as the development of new products and solutions for our clients.
I'm Gary Richmond, Director of Interactive Sales, which means I'm out looking for ways to solve our clients' digital advertising challenges.
So the webinar here today is to recap some of the learnings that we had at two conferences that we went to this past week and the week prior. The first one was SMX West, which is a conference focused primarily on search marketing tactics, and the second one will be going over the BIA Kelsey Leading in Local National Impact Conference, which was held in Boston. So for Marquette Group, we're a digital marketing agency, a directional marketing agency based out of Peoria, Illinois. We focus specifically on national brands that have a multi-location presence, helping them connect with the individual locations' local customers. We've been around for about 50 years, so very stable, and we have about 100 or so clients, and primarily focus on strategic consulting as well as making sure that we have the right solutions in place when it comes to traditional and digital marketing. The tools that we use to do this really are, as you see on the screen here, local, social, mobile search. We have nearly all of our clients are participating in one form of these products here, but a lot of the conversation today is going to be focused around local, search, and mobile, and we'll get into a little bit more detail as we go on. But in the interest of time and to make sure that we have enough time left over to go into any questions that are available as well as get through all the different slides that we have, we're going to hop right in. So as I said before, the first section is going to be really recapping the SMX West conference. That was in San Jose, California. I'm going to go into three sort of high-level topics: best practices or new things that were being discussed, how enterprise companies, very, very large-scale companies are best managing SEM and SEO, so similar best practices, tactics, and challenges. And then we're going to wrap up with the Facebook graph search and some of the impacts of the new rollout of graph search and some information that we got directly from Facebook while we were there. And then Gary is going to go into the section on the Leading in Local National Impact Conference, specifically looking at trends, statistics, information about local digital advertising, look at some of the challenges that exist today that a bunch of startups and brands alike are trying to overcome, and then wrap up with looking at how mobile is influencing local, and then new companies, new opportunities, new media channels for local specifically. So the general premise that we'll be going through here is really just presenting some of the interesting information that we received at these conferences. We'll add sort of our flavor, our interpretation of what went on, but this is mostly an information sharing session, so if anybody has any questions, please feel free to send them over, and you can use the webinar control panel, or we'll have time at the end certainly to review all those questions as well as answer any additional questions that come up. So the first section we'll go into here is really looking at the SEM and SEO best practices. This the whole section, the whole conference really was about best practices, and as search becomes, continues to grow and continues to add complexity with different search result pages and different channels now that are adding search, such as Facebook, this is really impossible to try to encapsulate all the different bits and pieces of information that we have. So the biggest takeaway about search marketing is that it's continuing to grow and become enormously complex, even for the best digital marketers, whether it's in-house or at agencies. when you look at new tactics, things that we heard commonly across the different sessions. This was a three-day conference, and there was about 50 or 60 different sessions that were available to take. But the things that we heard were seen on the screen here. Using negative keywords is very, very important. As you get bigger complexity, as you get a bigger volume of keywords and ads that you're placing, you're going to run into placing ads for the wrong queries based on match type. So there's a lot of discussion about using negative keywords, but being careful to avoid conflict, because if you choose the wrong negative keywords, you're going to actually take out ads and keyword phrases that you want to be bidding on. So certainly a lot of discussion about that. Apple Maps continuing to evolve. There was quite a bit of discussion about how you can optimize, how you can make sure that all of your locations are in Apple Maps and that they're ranking well. Specifically, we had a lot of discussion about using Yelp for reviews and how that is impacted. Really, the simple answer is that Yelp is displaying the 3 most recent reviews, and it's important for any multi-location business to understand what photos and what reviews are being displayed for their listings in Apple Maps, because if you had a recent bad review or a recent bad photo, that can be the only thing that's showing up for your listing in Apple Maps. But overall, the industry consensus is that it's really challenging right now still working with Apple Maps because they don't have the management tools available overall. Then we're going to get into this a little bit later in the presentation, but there was a lot of talk about technical SEO. Sites are getting bigger, especially at the enterprise level. There's thousands and thousands of pages now on sites, and it becomes very, very challenging to be able to manage the technical side of the SEO, let alone the content and creating keyword strategies. So we talked about things like how often and the efficiency of the crawl of your site and what pages are being indexed, canonicalization, setting up authorship and other types of microformats and schema. But we'll get into this a little bit more later on in the presentation, looking at how technical SEO relates to the large-scale enterprise. Then there was a bit of information about mobile conversion tactics. Really, as far as mobile is concerned, there's not a tremendous amount new in terms of optimization. The biggest change is what we're going to see on the next slide here, and so that's foreshadowing. I'll get to it in just a second. The last bullet here on new tactics was just making sure that you're optimizing for Google Knowledge Graph. The Google Knowledge Graph is similar to the Facebook graph in the sense that it's structured data. It's based on objects and their connections, as opposed to just crawling data and crawling pages and finding keywords. So the Google Knowledge Graph is, it's going to eventually get around to the places and locations and get into this multi-location business world. It's not really penetrated yet, but it's still certainly something that we want to be considering as we're building out new SEO strategies. However, with all those points that I just made, by far the most talked about thing was the AdWords enhanced campaigns. We had the pleasure of having a couple of folks from Google talking about the AdWords side and how proud they are of the enhanced campaigns. But in the industry, and really it was a combination of agencies and specialists and people from the delivery side as well. The consensus was very, very mixed on whether enhanced campaigns were going to be helpful or hurtful to running campaigns. Google's perspective was that they looked at all of the trends and they looked at all of the aggregate data of how people are using AdWords, and they built enhanced campaigns to improve what most people commonly do. And so the approach that they took, and they repeated it several times, was that they built the structure so that it can capture those commonly used functions. Whether it's are people creating separate tablet versus desktop campaigns, are people creating different ads and bidding on different keywords on tablet versus desktop versus mobile. And so they made a lot of interesting decisions based off of that aggregate data, and there was a lot of disagreement in the crowd of what's the best way or how to use enhanced campaigns, or even if you should be using the enhanced campaigns until you're forced to. But when you look at the content of enhanced campaigns and what has changed versus the old campaigns that the traditional way of managing AdWords campaigns, some of the things you can do here, just to give a little bit of background, that you can, of course, set up campaigns that you can have a bid adjustment when people are in a particular location. What that means is that you have the option to create target markets, target areas, or even base bid adjustments when people are near your location. You have you might want to do this around competitors. You might want to do this around your locations. And so if people are, if we know that a user is particularly close in proximity, we may want to say we want to double our bid amount when somebody is in this radius. So you can increase bids not just on geo-targets, but also on time and also on device. So if people are on mobile and it's 9 o'clock at night, you can ramp up your bid based on percentages even higher. Google is going to have some new reports coming soon to better track the conversions that are coming from phone calls if you're using their call tracking or if you're using the mobile click-to-call. They recently made some adjustments where you can only use click-to-call for phone numbers instead of having the phone number in the ad copy. Again, further pushing people towards enhanced campaigns. And then you also have the ability to have ad group level extensions, which previously was a campaign level setting. So you would have the extensions that would apply to all the keywords and all the different ad groups in your campaign. And then you can also schedule ad extensions to be on or off, as well as schedule offers, which is an ad extension to be on or off. So it really just dramatically expanded the capabilities, but it also dramatically expanded the complexity to manage campaigns. And when you apply this to the way that enterprises handle SEM and SEO, it quickly scales to be a lot different management process than it was before with the old version of campaigns. So the conversations that we were part of in the sessions that we were in, and how they relate to enterprise, really focus around making sure that you have the right keyword strategy, using things like the search query report, using site search, using competitive research to make sure that you have the right keywords that you're targeting. But then taking that data, and that should be potentially thousands of different keywords at the enterprise level, and using that to improve the relevancy to your audience. What that means is not just having a session, a visit to your site be considered a standalone event, but you want to link it to everything else that you're doing in digital marketing, and then at a higher level, everything you're doing across your entire marketing plan. And that links to the enhanced campaigns as you see here. So as I was saying before, that you can change your bids based off of location, you can change it based off of time, and I was talking about some of the complexity based off of creating these campaigns and having a strategy behind your campaigns. At the enterprise level, this amounts to you have a core bid, and this is a keyword of Dyson vacuum, and your core bid is 45 cents. But then you can put in bid adjustments based off of all of these other factors. Is it a tablet? Then we want to add 10% to our bid. If they're out of home and they're on Wi-Fi, we're going to want to add 3%. If they're in Houston, we don't think that they're going to convert as much. We want to lower our bid by a little bit. And then if it's Monday at 11:35, we want to have a bid adjustment as well. And then if it's a keyword that we think is going to have a high conversion rate, then we also want to have a bid adjustment up. So these are all the types of things you have to think about, and not only on just a campaign level or nationally, but you also have to look at it at an individual DMA level, because that's your bid adjustment for Houston, but that might be different even in certain parts of Houston. So the bid adjustments and the way that you use enhanced campaigns to change the bidding strategy that you have in place just got enormously more complex. It requires essentially that all campaigns are having a desktop and a mobile component, but it also combines tablets and desktops. That is a very interesting decision that Google made to have the tablet to be considered the same device and the same experience as desktops. And there's a lot of discussion, a lot of challenge in the industry towards Google of why would we not be able to allow a different campaign to be running on a tablet as opposed to running on a desktop. So really what that amounts to at the enterprise and at the smaller level is that any ads that you run on desktops are going to be the exact same when they're run on tablets in terms of the keywords that you're bidding on and the ads that you're displaying, which is a bit of a change because previously you used to be able to create a tablet-only campaign or a mobile-only campaign and really focus on different sets of keywords for that. So as far as the impact that has on enterprises and on agencies, regardless of who's managing the campaign, requires a lot more strategy up front and a lot more interpretation of data. So the next type of major trend that we talked about while we were there was how do you link together all of the data that we have available and use it to optimize campaigns, both SEO and SEM. The big data, in quotes, is not just about having more data available, but by connecting data and having valuable insights to it. And we can use the data that's available if we use it wisely to identify better user intent and customize the experience when somebody gets to your website based off of that user intent. So, essentially what it comes down to is your campaigns and your user experience on your site can and should change based off of the items that we know that are on this screen. So by using analytics and by using business intelligence software, we can have better insight into what did this individual do when they were here during their last visit. Did they look at products? Did they look at certain pages? How can we customize that experience based off of what we know about that user? Did they look at certain, if it's a product, did they look at certain colors? Did they look at certain locations? Can we set that as their default location? And then, do we know where they are in terms of location? Do we know that other competitors are advertising on these same keywords? What it all amounts to is making sure that we're using the data to reduce the friction in that experience, whether it's searching for the same product again or searching for the same location again, and increasing the likelihood that they're going to convert by making it easier for them. And that making it easier for users and increasing the likelihood that they're going to convert through the use of data and through the use of new things like enhanced campaigns really then comes back and to our next big subject here, which is technical SEO. There was a tremendous amount of discussion about how to manage SEO at the enterprise level when you think of sites like Amazon and Zappos that have tens of thousands of variations of pages, and really making sure that any large-scale website is getting the most out of the organic search. So on the left, you'll see a screenshot of some of the things that we were, the sessions that we were in, very, very, very technical. How you are making sure that you have pagination set up properly, that you have canonicalization set up, that you have no server errors and checking for all that. But at the end of the day, what it amounts to is making sure that you have the appropriate site speed, not just for user experience, but also for Google. Site speed is something that impacts Google's rank of your website in organic search, and it also impacts the amount of pages that Google is willing to index on your site. So if you have technical errors, or if you have redirects, or you have confusing link structures on your site, that's going to change the amount of pages that Google is able to index. Now, as you can see in the blue box on the right here, there's some pretty dramatic impacts to not having a fast site and not having an appropriate speed of what users are expecting. And really the bottom 2 points there, that for every 1 additional second of load time, conversion rates are going to drop because people are impatient and they're going to abandon their session. And then for every 1 second of load time, user satisfaction drops even more as people get frustrated by the experience. So there's a tremendous amount of detail, and it would be impossible to go into in a 45-minute session. On the technical SEO side, I'd be happy to go into a longer discussion or perform audits if there's any clients or prospects on the line that would like to have a little bit more in-depth discussion. And then the last thing in terms of enterprise scale, and this one is kind of a quick hit, but Screaming Frog as an SEO spider was brought up a lot, in almost an abnormal amount of frequency that it came up in conversation. This is a tool that anybody can use. It's free up to a certain amount of URLs that you're crawling, but it's a tool that's going to go through every page on your site, not every page if you use a free version, but it can go through any page on your site or any site and give you all of the SEO related data that you need. And you can really build workflows, or you can build project plans on how to improve it. So it'll go through and it'll provide to you a report of essentially what Google would see, or any search engine spider would see, about your site, including title tags, keywords, the length of content, server error codes, anything, whether in terms of H1 tags, H2 tags, anything that's SEO related, you can see. And so it's not just about tracking your site and creating a task list of things that you need to fix, and it's also a great way to build reports on your competitors as well. So you can plug in one of your competitors' websites into the tool, and it will crawl and output, and you can see pages that they have that maybe have content that you don't have, or you can see naming conventions or H1, H2 tags that they're using that might be helpful for you to integrate or to develop content around for your site. So it's a great tool. It's very, very inexpensive, and almost across the board, every SEO discussion that we were involved in, the Screaming Frog came up at one time. So it's something definitely worth checking out, and if you don't feel comfortable using it, you can always reach out to us, and we can run your site through it and walk through the results for you. So the last big thing in the SMX West conference was Facebook Graph Search, and this was actually released a little bit before the conference, so it's not exactly cutting edge at this point, but it's still in beta. Now I've got a blurry cam photo here from the conference, and this is from Facebook's presentation. They don't actually send out the presentation, so the only way to capture the screens is to take a photo with your phone. So I apologize for it, but I like it because it confirms the authenticity of where it came from. But overall, Facebook doesn't have a great plan currently of how graph search relates to business, and they definitely don't have a great plan for how it relates to multi-location businesses, or people with a lot of physical presences around the country. And the reason I say that is because they actually said that straight out, that at this point, the search team for Facebook hasn't had really any conversations with any businesses about what their needs or wants would be, or how best to manage it. So it's something that they're building as really just a discovery tool right now, but they do not have any short-term plans on how they're going to involve businesses and how to manage it, or how to best approach it, which I know for our clients and a lot of prospects that we talk to, it's sort of a thorn of how we manage that. So you can see here from Facebook directly, they say that one of the benefits to business is there's new ways to be discovered through the graph search functionality. That amounts to people finding you based off of your location, but also based off of content, like categories, photos, videos, people who are connected to your location, and people's interests. Now, this is a dramatic change for search on Facebook. Previously, and what a lot of users still have available, is just the little box on the top of the screen, and you can use it to find something specific, but it's very, very difficult to discover or find new locations by using search on Facebook. So this when it's fully rolled out and when it's fully developed, graph search is going to be an enormous improvement over how you can find data and find things like businesses and recommendations through Facebook. Now, you'll see here an example of a search that I did, and just to give you sort of a flavor of the type of things that are going to be available and the things that Facebook demoed to us of what they're trying to build. And this one, the search at the top that says movies that people that work at Marquette Group like, not particularly useful, but it gives you an idea of the type of information that's available. Then you have a little bit more relevant search here on the next slide of restaurants in Peoria, Illinois that people that work at Marquette Group like. And you can see that we've got all local restaurants here, and I'm happy to say that One World Cafe at the top of the list is my favorite restaurant. So I would say that they got this right. But just based off of information, the structured information that Facebook has set up, we can see that the discovery engine becomes very, very, very important. And there's a lot of people, there's hundreds of millions of people that use Facebook as their home base for the internet. And as the graph search becomes more widespread, and as it becomes the standard on Facebook, they're going to be using it to find local businesses and find recommendations on plumbers and lawyers and restaurants and everything along those lines. So it's really something that we need to pay attention to. We've got some direct connections to Facebook, and we're staying plugged in and making sure that we're up to date on whatever the latest and greatest tools are available for businesses. But if there's anybody on the call who would like to go into a little bit more depth or would like to have some test searches run, we can do that all for you here. So the last thing that I'll say about graph search is really the optimization strategy, what you can do now as a business to make sure that you're taking advantage as best you can currently of graph search. And you'll see another blurry cam photo on the right, just again to show you the source of where this information came from. So this is directly from Facebook, and they say that the search results that they display in graph search are based specifically on the connections, obviously, of the person that's searching. But it's not just the number of connections, it's looking at the strength of those relationships. So they're actually, when they deliver search results for a graph search, they're looking at how much do these two people interact, and I'm going to weight that connection, the strength of that connection, to determine whether or not this movie or book or restaurant or business to determine where that should be ranked in the search results page. A recommendation that they say is to make sure that you're sharing content directly on your Facebook pages as opposed to on your website and then just linking to Facebook and with buttons, or putting it just on a brand page and not on the individual location pages, because those things that are posted directly to Facebook pages are the only photos and videos that are going to appear in the photo and video results. So if you want to have any enhanced content or any creative be appearing in the graph search results, you have to make sure that it's posted directly into your Facebook pages. And then, to me, the most important component that they mentioned about how to optimize for graph search is this last bullet point here. Pages with good engagement and recent check-ins are ordered higher. So as users get more accustomed to using graph search, they're going to be searching for businesses, and Facebook is clearly saying that their algorithm is going to favor businesses that have recent engagement. They have users who are talking, not just the business who's blasting out ads, but they have people who are talking and commenting, and they have people that are checking in. So Facebook is using the engagement as a signal of whether or not this location should be ranked higher. So the only way to do that is to have a dedicated strategy, a dedicated social effort for each of the locations that you have in place. Certainly that opens up a lot of discussion points, and the intent of this session is not necessarily to have the full detail about graph search, but if there are any questions, make sure to send them over, and we can talk a little bit more about graph search later. So that wraps up the SMX West session, and I'm going to turn it over to Gary here for the Leading in Local conference recap.
All right, very good. Thanks, Steve. The BIA Kelsey conference that we attended in Boston was themed the national impact, with the overall conference being labeled Leading in Local. So most of the slides that you'll see here, most of the content that you'll see has that overtone to it of how national brands and national organizations are impacting the local marketplace. But we've been going to Kelsey for a number of years. Personally, I've been going for 10 years now, and we find it to be a very good indicator of the leading edge of what's happening in the marketplace, and they do a very good job of identifying trends and opportunities that they see developing in the marketplace. So we've tried to capture a series of slides here, and there's about 15 slides or so that are really just captured from the conference that I'll try to summarize and talk through and give you a general feel of what we thought the overriding messages were. First and foremost, they started the conference with this slide that talks about the fact that the local advertising marketplace is roughly $132 billion in dollars being spent on an annual basis, with about a third of that being influenced by the national brands. So they're spending on behalf of or somehow influencing that expenditure at the local level. That includes co-op opportunities and what have you. But they're making brands are, and the national organizations are focusing more and more on that influence of local and how it drives business in the marketplace. When you look at this next slide, when you look at the actual small to medium business, which is what SMB stands for, these organizations, these small businesses, are using more channels than ever. In the last 3 years, they've basically tripled the amount of channels that they're using to promote their business. So in 2012, BIA Kelsey is projecting that it's roughly on average 10 channels being utilized by these businesses. And I think that makes sense. The fragmentation in the marketplace has intensified, and business in general is reacting accordingly. Another organization that spoke and was a keynote speaker at this meeting had conducted a Chief Marketing Officer survey, and there were a series of results that they presented that I thought was very pertinent to this overall theme and the fact of how local is influencing the national mindset. So this question was, how important is localized marketing in demand generation and revenue to your organization? Roughly 60% of these folks said it's essential. So 6 out of 10 of these organizations are making it a very critical element of what they do and how they go forward in marketing their organizations. Take that one step further, the follow-up question on that is, what are the challenges your team faces in keeping local campaigns refreshed and relevant? And this is really a niche that Marquette Group specializes in, so this is very relevant to us as well. But the things that came back from a response standpoint, and you can see by the numbers here that you could answer with multiple components or multiple choice questions. The 3 leading elements were lack of resources and bandwidth to stay on top of the content, limited budgets to fully execute, and then lack of resources and bandwidth to coordinate multiple regions and do that really local element within their organization. I think that's very telling of the struggles that the national brands are having in driving that localization. They recognize the importance of it, but they're not able to monetize it or focus resources on it to their content. So when you look at that, then there's a group of slides that we basically summarized as today's consumer and national brands challenges in local. And I saw this slide and I thought it was very relevant and hadn't seen it put quite in these terms yet. But basically, the high utility era is upon us. And by that, they were talking about the fact that we have so many resources in which to get online. It's instantaneous. Both mobile and tablets are really changing the game. So this high utility area is being driven by the phones and the tablets. There are a myriad of specific tools that are available for specific users. We all tend to use these devices a little differently, but at the end of the day, it makes our life simpler and more efficient. And another really significant element of this is how small businesses are becoming untethered. They're no longer limited to the electronics within their organization or even a cash register. You can now conduct charges through a cell phone or other means of operation. So these organizations and these small businesses have much more flexibility to how they go to market. And then consumers are very much more empowered by the apps and the web, the mobile web, in ways that we've never been able to, one, educate or drive answers in the marketplace like we can today. Another really significant statement, which seemed very simple at the time, but is really, in my mind, extremely important, is the fact that consumers don't think in channels, but brands usually do. We have a tendency as businesses to tower pieces of advertising and marketing promotion into a series of channels, but the consumer is now sort of able to circumvent those channels and navigate in whatever way makes sense for them at that moment. And this chart is representing all the different options we have as a consumer and the differences in which we go to market. That's further exemplified on this next slide in the fact that it's basically, from a consumer standpoint, becoming omni-channel. You see the four elements and the percentages of the consumers that utilize these different methods, but research and buy products online versus researching online and visit a store to make the purchase, or visit the store first, then make the purchase online, or researching online, visiting the store, basically using the store as a showroom, then turning around and purchasing online. All these different contingencies are really influencing the way people go to market, and I thought this was a very good slide in illustrating that and the challenges that these businesses face. But when you think about localization, one of the elements that is really driving that is mobile's influence on how we utilize local. As a consumer, and now how businesses are trying to adapt to leverage the platform of mobile in which to promote their business. So you can see here, one of the things BIA Kelsey does a very good job of is predicting business in the future and the wave of these trends. And so you'll see here that basically 38% of mobile advertising, local mobile advertising, was really targeted to a location, and they're predicting that that grows in significant scale over the next couple of years as technology improves and as we find ways to better market online and leverage not online, but on mobile, and then leverage that success. Another set of resources, even within the last year, the ability to geo-precision target and do some geo-fencing and geo-targeting to specific behavioral elements has intensified significantly, and businesses are reacting to that and taking advantage of it, really optimizing their spends and targeting to a much stronger degree than was available in the past, to the point now where over 80% of these campaigns are being targeted at a very specific geofencing or behavioral tactic of some sort. As we see a great deal of influence in the local marketplace. There are some other things that emerging trends forward in this page. That includes, one, the element of social native advertising that is starting to happen. That's a new term that I hadn't heard a lot talked about, but you'll see the forecasts here that it's going to become a much more significant factor in overall social advertising, and as see it compared against social display. Many of you are probably sitting there and asking, what is social native advertising? So we've put a definition here. We captured a slide that provided a definition that includes, basically, it's advertising that's inherent on a site, or it blends into the site and makes it look like the appearance of the site or the content in which it appears. It seeks to be seamless and part of the content consumed. In other words, it's entrenched within the website that you're looking at. Further, the explanation goes on to talks about it embeds brands within infotainment content. I'll show you an example of that here in a moment. You can read the other bubbles or the other bullets accordingly. But basically, native advertising appears to be something that's going to continue to grow in its importance and be an element that consumers tend to respond to. So an example of that is this mobile illustration that's here, whereas somebody who's online actually playing in an online gambling or poker run here has the ability during a pause, there will be an advertisement that comes up and offers the opportunity to congratulate them on their success, and interestingly enough, talk about their banking activities and how they can go shift some funds into their checking account or whatever the situation is. But basically, it's capturing that consumer at the right point with the right context to create the desired result for the advertiser. There's a great deal of opportunity here that we think brings a lot of merit to the marketplace moving forward. Another element that I think is going to continue to see a great deal of activity in the very near future is digital wallets and using cell phones and other vehicles to conduct a transaction or reap a reward from a consumer experience. And this illustration just talks about the connectivity between the merchant and that consumer in the digital wallet, and the ultimate really hyper-local targeting that you can do and the geofencing you can do with mobile products. The best way to illustrate this is the next slide that talks about an active campaign that's been running on Foursquare by Burger King, where you have your credit card basically aligned in this program, and you can get credit back on your credit card if you make a purchase that's over $10. It's a promotional campaign from Burger King that doesn't entail any coupon or QR scan or any of that type of thing. It's simply, if you spend more than $10 at Burger King against the credit card that you've got registered, you get $1 credit back against that. So it's an instantaneous result of a promotional activity being run by Burger King. And we envision more and more of this activity taking place in the not too distant future as well. We think this is a very significant advancement in the mobile and online promotion space. With that, we're ending actually several minutes early, so there is plenty of time and opportunity for questions. You can see here Steve and I's contact information to follow up should you want to ask questions offline. At the moment, I think we've addressed each of the three. One of the things that I want to reinforce is this presentation will indeed be available. It's being recorded and it will be posted on our website in the not too distant future, sometime over the next couple days. There is one question here that I'll let Steve tackle that addresses examples of negative keywords.
Yeah, so negative keywords is a practice when you're building out a paid search campaign, that if you would have a keyword query that you're targeting, that you're bidding on. So an example is if you're a coffee shop, a local coffee shop, and this is the age-old example that's been used, but so I've got Steve's Coffee located here in Peoria, Illinois, and I've got a paid search campaign running, and one of the keywords that I would probably bid on would be Java. Java being a search term people are pretty likely to use to find coffee, but Java is also a programming language. And so what you do when you're running a paid search campaign is I want to set up a broad match keyword for Java so that if people are searching for fresh Java in Peoria, Illinois, or long tail searches that would be impossible to gather and impossible to bid on each one of those keywords individually, you set up a broad match for Java or a variant of Java. You have to add negatives into the campaign because we don't want our ad to be appearing for Java language or Java programming, because if we appear for that keyword, then we've got two potential things. That could happen. You could have people clicking on your ad, misunderstanding what the intent of the advertising was, and ending up on your website and being very surprised to see a coffee shop instead of information about how to write code in Java, and then that's wasted money, right? So you're paying for that click for somebody to get to your site. And then the other thing that could happen is that your ad is appearing for keywords about Java programming, and it's not being clicked on, which is, it's good that it's not being clicked on because it's not directly costing you money, but it's going to decrease the performance of the campaign because the more times that your ad appears and it's not clicked on, Google will progressively notch down the rank of your ad, and if the click-through rate gets low enough by having too many served impressions that don't have a click, they're really going to not be fond of your ad in general, and they're going to increase the bid that's required to have that ad appear. So you can have both direct and indirect examples, and it's not nearly as obvious as Java the coffee or Java the programming language. If you look at search query reports, either through analytics software or looking at keyword activity for what people are actually typing in, there's a lot of different ways to get that. Negatives can come in a wide variety of different forms. It can be music albums that are similarly titled to search queries that you have. It can be other businesses or other business tactics. It can be movie titles that people are looking for. It can also be news events. So if you have a keyword that is a pretty good buying signal of somebody doing a search, that might also someday or periodically it might turn into a news story that's happened, whether it's something good or bad. You can get people who are searching for that and then seeing your ad and clicking on your ad because they think that it's going to get them the information that they want. So you just have to be really mindful of negatives. And then the discussion that was at the conference of making sure that you're using negatives appropriately is that there's kind of a knee-jerk mentality oftentimes with negatives. And if you see a query that you know that you don't want to, if you're selling auto insurance, as an example, you don't want your ad showing up for searches for auto parts necessarily. You may, but you may not. You don't want to just automatically add that as a negative keyword because it could possibly influence your campaign in too far in one direction, and then your ads aren't showing up for certain keywords that you want. So you have to be really careful with how you implement them and keep a close eye. And really the best takeaway or the best practice is to constantly be checking and pruning keywords in and out. Your keyword list should be dynamic. It should change based off of what's working and what's not working. And if it's been a while since you've looked at and evaluated your bidded keywords versus your negative keywords, you could have some that you might want to change. So we'll hang on the line here for a couple seconds if there's any other questions. Otherwise, that's everything that we have so far. I would say that the best way, if you want additional information or you want to continue the conversation or maybe see how any of these things affect your particular business, is to contact us and we can start discussing some of these topics a little bit more in depth. Otherwise, thanks everyone for your time, and we will look forward to seeing everybody on the next webinar that we conduct.